Okay, I found a super easy way to explain kind of what I'm trying to teach. And it's one of those things where, like, if you teach Tai Chi, you hide Tai Chi. And so what you are is your metabolism, like the unification of heaven and earth. So the food and the breath comes down, meets when the digestion starts, and is taken, and then that food mixes thoroughly with the breath and is basically burned up and dissolved in the body. And then that energy goes and runs all the cellular processes and the ATP and the muscle contraction and the nerve impulses firing for your perception, and everything else that you do is from your metabolic energy, which is from the unification of heaven and earth via eating, breathing. That's the main religious activity on earth that creates all life. Great. So that process drives the electricity or the ATP that moves the body, and then that electricity is you. Like when people say you're alive, they go, oh, he's like, that's happening. And if you don't have any will left in your body, you're not alive anymore. So will is what people think of as the ego, but it's actually all metabolic processes. And it's just view that heaven and earth coming in the lungs, sucked in the stomach, digested, and then that electricity is meeting, vaporizing, dissolving it in the water, and then recrystallizing it into different cell structures. And so as that energy goes in, it's going, the breath comes in and it's going to the nerves and the muscle and all that. So look at all that electricity. That's your will, that's your life, and that's what you're controlling when you push your hand out. That's your will. So your awareness is what the will is taking place inside of. The awareness is passive, the will is active. The awareness is the water of the body. All of the metabolism, everything, your breath, is all dissolved in the water. So what you are is this single electrical current in the water. Yeah? No, I'm just hanging out taking care of you all day. So it's a single unified electrical activity happening in the water of the body. That's where the breath is. That's where the metabolism is inside of water. So when you're in water, you can be like more buoyant or stuck to the surface, or you can be heavy and kind of stuck on the bottom, or you can be neutral and floating. And no matter what, when you're in water, you're being supported by the water that is equal to your volume plus times the water's density, basically. So the density of the water times your volume is the amount of buoyancy that the water is providing you. And so even if you're sinking, it's still providing you that amount of buoyancy. And then if you're coming up out of the water, it's providing you exactly that amount of buoyancy too. So it's the buoyancy is a force of the awareness on everything that's in water. Everything that's displacing the field of water has a buoyancy force acted on it, and it will squeeze that object towards the less dense direction. So like when you put like a balloon in the water, all the water squeezes it, and it squeezes it in that less dense direction. And then if the object's too heavy, it's connected to the more dense part of the water, the bottom, and then the water's still squeezing it, lifting it up, but this downward force overcomes the buoyant force. And that's the behavior of everything in water. And so your will is in the water. And so when you're learning something like Tai Chi or flow state or whatever, what's going on is your will is everything you can feel and do, because feeling is doing. So anywhere that you're feeling or doing is your will, is your electricity, is your metabolism. And if you have an area where you're not feeling, then your metabolism or your will is outside of itself, or like stuck on the bottom in the depths. It's just somewhere where you can't see it. It's not like to be able to be very conscious of something, it needs to be near the surface, either outside of the surface or below the surface. If something sinks too far away from the surface, you can lose sight of the surface, and it becomes an unconscious process, even though it's still inside the awareness. So you feel your surface level self, and you just give yourself over to that buoyancy. Where is the buoyancy? It's in the water. Where is the water? The water's resting on the ground. So the water's resting on the ground, and then you place your metabolism right in the middle of it, your will. That's embodiment, that's centering, yada, yada, yada. Right, so then how do we know if a movement's correct? Well, how do movements happen? One way movements happen is the will. The will can push, right, and that'll make you go forward, or the awareness can push, right? And so the will is very individualistic, and the awareness is broad and systemic, but you have the same amount of control over both. Your awareness between yourself and everyone shares awareness, just like we all share air. And then our wills are individualistic, right? But there's equal control of each. So with the awareness, you can actually push your awareness in a direction, and your will has to kind of conform to it or be willing to tune into it. But you can push your awareness and cause the same movement to happen from kind of a frame shift, or just from awareness going. And it's just a little bit, it's leading with awareness. And then and then you can kind of like, if you really ramp it up, you can send the awareness like pretty big, and if there's a kind of a relaxing, you can fall into the awareness pretty hard and surf it. And so that allows you to be supported in, I don't have too much space here, I'm not very aware, but so correct movement, you want to be able to basically make a distinction between your awareness and your will, just like you can make a distinction between your right hand and your left hand. Super important. So the distinction between the awareness and the will is basically one of the foundational things of movement, because those are the two muscles, and they're all a single muscle. Your metabolism is a single thing. Your awareness is also a single thing, right? So anytime one moves, they all move. And if you're not experiencing this, you're in kind of a delusional dream state, and there'll be like a mechanics to it, and there's a certain complexity about reality that you've learned in this dream state that you believe to explain to yourself why things are the way they are. There's a simple obviousness to actual reality when you wake up, and that's why when people wake up, they go, oh, it's so simple, it's so clear, I already knew this already. It's as simple as like 1, 2, 3 component system, right? The Trinity or whatever. It's not. The whole ATP, mitochondria, electrons, protons, quarks, gluons, blah, 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 but none of that's actually there. That's a complexity that we've overlaid onto the foundational principles of like the Trinity of like awareness, will, and then there's something else, and even that's overlaying something onto it already. I'm looking at reality in terms of my body, so I'm thinking about, well, what is my body comprised of? Awareness, will, like matter, right? And so, but my will is obviously tied to my matter, because it's like my muscles are matter, and my muscles are what I move with. So that single electrical circuit of the mass is a single body. And then you can, then you're putting forth these shapes of will. You're just projecting will with the body. No matter what your sport is, I like thinking of martial arts because it's so simple. It's just like things, protect and like absorb, project. Or like dance is very, very complex because you're conforming to the will of the play or the director or whatever. It's a much more demanding. Or like acting, where even your personality itself has to be managed. Whereas that with martial arts is like such a base, lowest level practice where nothing has to be understood or managed. It's literally just absorb, project, deflect. But that's the big key thing. So like when I say like, oh, we are awareness, what I mean is we are water, right? So when you find parts of your will that are not in the water, and you're like, okay, let's center, boom. What happens there is that will falls down into the water, and then when you do that, it sees all the other will that's already there, because it drops into the water with the rest of the will instead of being on the outside looking at the surface. You drop into the water and you learn, oh, all this is already happening, and you kind of join that symphony. Whereas when you're outside of the water, you see the will and you see these impulses, and you see those impulses as controlling the water or controlling the waves, the surface waves. When you're disassociated of your will, when your will is outside of your body, you see those impulses controlling the direction of the body. But once you drop into the water, you actually realize that the water itself, the body itself, the awareness itself, has control over what the will is doing. So the awareness controls the will, and the awareness can also move. So the awareness flows. People think the awareness is just like what directs. Like people think their awareness is simply a cerebral thing. No, it's actually the cerebral thing, which is the mind stuff, but it's actually physical space that you move with. That physical space moves differently. Like if a ballet is on stage, the mental space of that stage has the shape of the nutcracker, and if you don't adhere to those ballet rules, then you're not embodied. Or if you get into like an MMA ring, the shape of the space is that opponent, and if you don't conform to the shape of the space, you're not moving with your awareness. Okay, so your awareness is everything around you, and so your awareness includes or contains everybody else's will, because their will is taking place in your awareness and vice versa. So to align with or embody your will, you have to pay attention to what's going on. Like nothing's happening right here, so it's very easy for me to like, oh, there's my will, I can align with my will. And you don't have to look retarded, like just stand normal. But you'll realize that like when you're standing normally is usually you have no awareness. But if you have awareness, then you like start to stand in that like, unless you people can get hyper aware, right? Like when you like like doing like methamphetamines or something like that can make you hyper aware, or psychedelics, because it dissolves into the water, the blood, the water, and it makes it. Sorry. Get out of here.